It's time for another watercolor pencil video, and this time it's Prismacolor's turn. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shanna Rowe Jackson, also known as Caution Artist at Play, because here on this channel, I play with all kinds of different art supplies, and I have been on a huge watercolor pencil kick lately. I've been doing a lot of different reviews, and some of you have put in requests for specific pencils, and one of those pencils was the Prismacolor Premier Watercolor Pencils. And I have to tell you, the regular Prismacolor Premier colored pencils were what made me fall in love with colored pencil. So I'm definitely curious to try these. So let's just get down to it. I'm going to do a piece with them and then just talk about the quality and all the different specs. You know, the huge when it comes to one of my reviews. Before I start on the project, let's take a closer look at these pencils. I have a regular Prismacolor Premier pencil on the top and the watercolor counterpart on the bottom. As you can tell, the watercolor pencil has a natural wooden casing look to it as opposed to the painted barrel that the regular Prismacolor Premier has. They come pre-sharpened, they have the Prismacolor branding, and they say watercolor and the color name. Now, an issue that I noticed immediately is that some of these barrels have a crack all the way down the wood, and of course there are some off-centered cores, which could cause issues with sharpening and the pencil breaking while working. Prismacolor is kind of known for some bad quality control issues, and a number of these pencils also have some really messy writing on them. It's kind of difficult to read some of them. You can see the paint is smeared. They have like an indent where they've put the writing, but the ink itself is smeared and kind of mushed together in a way that can make it difficult to read the color. And again, this one has a split all the way down the wooden barrel, which can cause some issues down the line, again, when it comes to sharpening and working. Now, I want to test these dry right next to the Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, because the Prismacolor Premier colored pencils are known to be very vibrant and soft, and I wanted to just see how these looked dry next to one another. Now, granted, they are going to have a different kind of binder to them in order for them to be water soluble, so I don't expect them to feel or look exactly the same, but I just picked 3 random colors that were the same and scribbled them out, and this is how they compare to each other. The regular colored pencil is on top, the watercolor is on bottom. And now I'm adding some water. I apologize, my camera did not want to focus, but I will show you a close-up of how that looks. And as you can tell, these are pretty vibrant. There is still some of that gritty texture on there. It didn't wash out completely. And I am using Arches Hot Press watercolor paper to test that out. And now I have here a swatch of all the black pencils from the lines I've been working with lately, and this is the Arches 140-pound cold press paper, so we can see how these look on a textured paper. And I was pretty impressed with this black. It's kind of a warm black, but it's really, really saturated, as you can tell comparing with other brands that I've tested in the past. It's a pretty dark black, and now I am switching to some of the Legion Stonehenge Aqua Black paper to test the white. Again, this is on the back of the swatches from my big watercolor pencil comparison video with the other brands that I have used. And I was really impressed with this white pencil. And here you can see a comparison between that and the regular Premier white pencil. Beautiful. Prismacolor has a beautiful white pencil to begin with, so I was really excited to see. And looking back at the swatches from the other brands I've been using lately, I was really impressed by the Caran d'Ache Supercolor and Museum Aquarelle, and the Prismacolor held up pretty well next to those two. And so I'm pretty excited about that aspect of it. So a great black, a great white, but you know, I'm a little bit timid about these quality control issues. Now, jumping into the project, I am again working on the Arches Hot Press watercolor paper. It's just 140 pound. I like to work on a nice smooth surface because I like to be able to get my details in. And I am starting in the background. Now, I should mention, this video was not sponsored by any of the companies mentioned, and so of course this is going to be my 100% honest opinion of these pencils. And so far, getting into the background, I am pretty impressed with the coverage. I'm being pretty messy here. And of course, with watercolor pencils, the bang for your buck is going to be when you add water. But layering them, they felt really nice. They don't feel as good as the Prismacolor Premier colored pencils. They're not as creamy. But again, I don't expect it to feel the same way because the binders have to be different in order for these pencils to be water soluble. And right off the bat, I was fairly impressed with the vibrancy. They're not the most vibrant that I've used recently, but they're not the least vibrant I've used either. Given the fact that this is the first pass, most watercolor pencils, when you put your first layers down, they're not going to be the highest saturation. There requires a lot of layering in order to get a good saturation. And so I'm pretty optimistic that this is going to build up fairly quickly. And I was right, especially in this background. Now, I used a lot of different techniques here. I am going to be glazing both dry and wet. I'm going to be coming in with my pencils first, mixing directly on the paper, and then putting water over it. And of course, down the line, I will also be using the palette method. You've seen me use this numerous times in previous videos. Basically what that is I have a palette off to the side. It's got a rough texture on it. I color on it with my dry pencil. I take a wet brush. I pick it up with my wet brush and paint it on like watercolor. And that's just another way to get the most out of your watercolor pencils. And you're seeing me use the palette method here to lay in an underpainting on these petals. Now, you have seen me do this kind of flower on the channel before. This is a daylily from a photo that I took in my yard, and I chose this specifically because when I first fell in love with colored pencil, the first thing that I drew with my Prismacolor pencils when I first got them, like the first finished piece I did as an adult with Prismacolor pencils, was a picture of this same kind of daylily, and I kind of wanted to harken back to that. And this is just a small 5x7. But basically, I'm mixing on the palette. I want to come in light in my petal areas because they are lighter than the background. There's a lot of sunlight hitting them. So I don't want to come in too dark too fast or too saturated too fast because I don't want to lose the transparency. That's one thing that I love about watercolor pencils is because there's the watercolor component. You can layer transparently and get that kind of illumination, similar to what you would see when you look at flower petals in sunlight. Now let's talk a little bit more about the specs of these pencils. I have here the 36 set. Now, these are not very expensive pencils, so that is something they definitely have going for them. They're around the same kind of price range as the Koh-i-Noor Mondeluz and the Derwent Watercolor. Each set is probably just within a few dollars difference when it comes to comparing these with the Mondeluz and the Derwent Watercolor. Again, this is the Derwent Watercolor, not to be confused with the Derwent Inktense. So I do like the fact that they are fairly inexpensive, and they're pretty vibrant for their price range. Definitely more vibrant than the regular Derwent watercolor pencils, probably around the same as the Koh-i-Noor Mondeluz. They do layer exceptionally well. They build up their vibrancy fairly quickly in layering. All in all, I was able to do everything that I needed to do with these pencils. I even enjoyed using them dry. They really were fun and beautiful to work with, especially for their price range. And their white and their black pencils are absolutely amazing to work with. Definitely able to get the opacity I needed. That being said, when comparing them to other pencils in the same price range, again, the Derwent Watercolor and the Koh-i-Noor, the Derwent Watercolor are available open stock. These and the Koh-i-Noor are not. The Koh-i-Noor might be in other areas, but here in the US, it's difficult to find them open stock. So I was not able to find the Prismacolor Premier Watercolor Pencils open stock on any of the sites that I shop on. These are available as a 12 set, a 24 set, and a 36 set. At Blick, I was able to find them at Jerry's and, of course, on Amazon. They didn't seem to be available at Jackson's or Cult Pens, so I feel like they're probably more readily available here in the US than in other countries. Prismacolor tends to be pretty readily available as a company here in the US. Now, another big difference between these and the other two companies that I've mentioned that are in a similar price range is the fact that Prismacolor does not have lightfast ratings on these. At least, not that I could find online anywhere, including their website. So it's hard to know if they'll fade over time. Though Colored Pencil Society of America did test them, but you have to be a member to see those ratings. Prismacolor does have lightfast ratings on their regular Prismacolor pencils, but I don't know if they're using the same pigments, and I honestly don't even know if these colors line up with colors in the regular Premier line or not. I found 3 that have the same color, but I didn't go through every single color. So I don't know if it's like a Faber-Castell thing where all the colors line up across different lines. I'm honestly not sure about that, but it's going to be different. Watercolor pencils are going to probably be a little bit less light fast than regular colored pencils in general. Typically, that's just how it is with a water-soluble product. Now, quick intermission here to show you that I did have a pencil break. And the lead just broke right off and fell right out, which is something that many people have complained about with the regular Prismacolor pencils. And I'm not entirely surprised because, again, a lot of these cores were off center, and a lot of the barrels, which the wood is meant to protect the core, right? So if the wooden barrel that is there, that is meant to protect the core, is not in good shape, and it has cracks, then it's not protecting the core the way it should. And so right off the bat, I had a feeling that this was going to happen. And honestly, I have to say, I love Prismacolor. It is, again, Prismacolor Premier is the pencil that made me fall in love with colored pencil. But that was back in like 2014, before things really started to drop off when it comes to quality control. But unfortunately, in recent years, Prismacolor does have the reputation online of not necessarily taking care of their pencils the way they should and really making sure that they're putting out a quality product. And I have to say, it looks like they've put even less effort into these pencils than they have the regular pencils. So I love the piece I came up with. I had a lot of fun with it. They're beautiful, but I feel like there's other pencils in the same price range that are better quality. All right, folks, that's it. Let me know, have you tried these pencils? And if so, what do you think of them? I had a lot of fun with them. I do like the piece that I did, but I don't know that these will be the ones I'm reaching for, especially since if I fall in love with a color, I can't just go out and buy another one. Kind of, upset about that and the quality control issues, but I did have a good time, and I'm really happy with the piece that I created. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. You have a great day. Bye.